Hi guys, and welcome to the very first episode of Learning Virtual Assistants with trainyx. And today we're just going to be covering the basis of virtual assistants, the introductory parts, nothing serious, no practical today, okay? Just the introductory parts. And without wasting much of our time, I'm going to be sharing my screen now. So just sit back, relax, and follow up. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the very first episode of Learning Virtual Assistants with trainyx. And for this video, it's just going to be the introductory part. It's just going to tell us who a virtual assistant is, who can become a virtual assistant, and basically how to become the best virtual assistant out there. Alright, so now we're going to look at the introductory aspects of this, which is basically why people pick being a virtual assistant. Alright, and the first thing you need to note is that in today's world, the working landscape has changed. It's no longer 9 to 5. You don't have to be at the office all the time. Like 10-20 years ago, remote workers did not exist. But like in today's world, and especially in this country, you need to be able to work remotely and from anywhere in the world. Alright. Number 2, global talent acquisition. This is a thing now. Companies from different areas of the world are looking to like hire people from different skill sets. Alright, companies, they have different departments, they always have different sectors, and now they are going to look for people to fit into those sectors, but they don't want to hire people on site. Alright, most of the time it's going to be virtual, most of the time it's going to be remote, and this is where we come in. Alright, this thing has basically opened doors for us as remote workers. Alright, and now the third thing is that being a virtual assistant these days is a very high demand job. It is very in demand. Alright, because most professional people, most business owners, most bosses these days, they need people who are flexible, efficient, and professional, and that is what we as virtual assistants tend to give them. Alright, and then the fourth thing is that we as virtual assistants, the industry is going to be very broad within the next couple of years. And the most important thing we could do to stand out in this industry is to be professional at its peak. Alright, we need to be professionals at its peak. So let's move on from that. Alright, so basically, who is a virtual assistant? A virtual assistant is basically a remote professional who aids in giving administrative, technical, and creative support to businesses and entrepreneurs from anywhere in the world. So let me just use simple terms for all of that. A virtual assistant is basically a helper, someone that works for a company, but they are not being, they're not physically in that company. Alright, they are full-time, but they work remotely. They are full-time staffs, but they work remotely. Now they use their computer, they use the internet, they work from home, but they help the businesses in the most crucial and most important parts. And this is another advantage. They all have global reaches. They are not limited to one part of the world. Yeah, if I'm going to hire a virtual assistant today, I'm not going to say, oh, they should come from just Nigeria, or they should come from just Thailand, or they should come from just Philippines. Virtual assistants can come from anywhere in the world. That's the most important thing. Alright, now let's move on to the next thing. What exactly do we do as virtual assistants? Alright, there's a list of things here that we all do, but these are the skills that we, how I put it, that we master in. These are the skills that we train in order to be called professional virtual assistants. For example, email and calendar management, I'm going to teach you that. Social media support, that is going to be niched down. Bookkeeping is also niched down. Data entry and research, I'm going to teach you that. Customer service, I'm going to teach you that. Content and document management, I will teach you an aspect of that. Alright, now when I say niche down, this is what I mean. There are different niches to being a virtual assistant. Alright, there's the administrative duty of being a virtual assistant. The administrative virtual assistants just take care of the overall aspect of their bosses. But when you niche down, that's when you start finding people like social media managers, calendar managers, email managers, data entries, customer service managers, stuff like that. Those people have niched down. They are no longer doing the overall duty of virtual assistant. They are just specializing in one aspect of virtual assistant. Alright, so without wasting much of our time, let's move on to the next slide. Why join the virtual assistant industry? Now, the most important reason why people join the virtual assistant industry is because of the flexibility. Okay, you have the freedom to work from any location. It could be your house, it could be even while you're still doing your 9 to 5, you could be working from wherever your 9 to 5 is. You could work from anywhere. So you have basically like a work-life balance that suits you. You could do it from any part, any area, anywhere that's suitable for you. You could go out to a cafe, go out to the park to walk, stay in your house, anything you want. You have that flexibility. Okay, now global job opportunities. When you become a virtual assistant, you have the opportunity to pick anybody from any part of the world that you want to work with. Okay, so you're not limited to you're not limited to just one sector or just one part of the world. You can work with anybody in any part of the world. If one time zone is not convenient for you, pick a different time zone. If the person in Paris is giving you too much stress, you could definitely just move back and stick to someone in the USA. If someone in the USA isn't giving you the vibe, you could pull back, work with someone in Italy. So you have the flexibility to work with anybody in any area of the world. Now the third one being the fact that it takes almost nothing to start, literally almost nothing, besides the most minimal investment, like the initial investment, like getting a laptop, a headphone, and internet connection, and maybe electricity connection. Those are the four most sorry about that. Those are the four most important things that I know any virtual assistant need to have. Okay, you don't need to start getting anything extravagant besides those four things. Now the high demand across the industry, I've told you the virtual assistant industry is a very, very powerful sector, and the main reason why people hire virtual assistants is basically to easing the stress from them. So if you can do that effectively and do it well, you will definitely not run out of jobs. Alright, scalable income potential. You can always work with different people in different areas of the world, and you can specifically target places in the world that have a higher currency, or their currency has a higher power than yours. For example, in Nigeria now, I know our currency isn't that well, but if you want to work with someone in the UK and they decide to pay you £20 per hour, that's good amount of money. Alright, so this business is definitely scalable. Alright, so let's move on to the next thing. Who can become a virtual assistant? Now, who can become a virtual assistant? I'm going to be very honest with you. Anybody can become a virtual assistant. It doesn't take that much. I'm serious, it really doesn't. But I listed out a list of people that could potentially become virtual assistants. First one being students looking for flexible income. I've heard scenarios of students saying, oh, I want to make money, but they never know how to do it. Being a virtual assistant will give you that flexibility to do it. Alright, stay at home parents. Exactly, if you have enough time on your hand and you're at home, being a virtual assistant is definitely something you could look into. Career switchers, that's for people that want to switch from 9 to 5 into becoming full-time remote workers. That's your sector, that's your bracket. And then professionals design greater flexibility in their work life, same thing. And then anyone with a willingness to learn and adapt. I'm being serious, anybody can become a virtual assistant. It's not rocket science. It's not going to take you to learn formulas or any of those things. You just need to know the basis, and the basis is what we're going to teach you over here in trainyx. Alright, so now let's move on to the next thing. Now, the essential skills for being a successful virtual assistant. So there are two skills you need to know if you want to become a successful virtual assistant. First one being your soft skill, and the second one being your hard skill. Your soft skill is basically your professional skill. That's like the things that you use professionally. Alright, these ones, they basically enable you to interact effectively and work best with others, while your hard skills are basically your ability to perform using various tools. I'm going to teach you some hard skills, and I'm also going to teach you some soft skills. Alright, so without wasting much of our time, let's move on to the next one. So basically, what are some soft skills that we virtual assistants could use in order to become successful at what we do? First one is communication. Second one, time management. Third one, emotional intelligence. Fourth one, adaptability. Fifth one, problem solving. Sixth, professionalism. And seventh, confidentiality. Alright, so let's move on again. Let's list some hard skills. Like I said, hard skills are basically just the abilities you can use to perform specific tasks. Alright, so for example, email management. Now, not everyone can do it, but they have hard skills. Alright, so if you can do email management successfully, then you've gained one hard skill. If you can do project management successfully, then you've gained one hard skill. If you can do CRM management, if you can successfully use CRM tools, then you've basically gained one hard skill. If you can do data entry well, then you've basically learned another hard skill. Alright, so these are a list of hard skills that most virtual assistants would have, and this is what's going to get them the job at the end of the day. When you're creating your CV, there's going to be a place that you have to put your soft skill, and then another place where you put your hard skill. If you can put at least 5 of these things here, 5 of these hard skills here, if you can put them in your CV, trust me, you have your job. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing, which is communication as a virtual assistant. Basically, communication is just the cornerstone of any successful remote work. Alright, communication is what is going to make your client trust you. Communication is going to make your client say, okay, yes, this person, I want to hire them. It's going to reduce the level of misunderstandings that you people have. Misunderstanding is common. It's going to happen, trust me. It's not going to be zero. It's going to happen between you and your client. But the best way to minimize it is through communication, and not just any form of communication, but clear communication. Alright, okay, so let's move on to the 7 C's of communication. So like I said, basically communicating is going to help you in different ways, to help you talk clearly, help you in writing clearly, and basically help your client in understanding you better. So as VAs here, most communication is done through messaging and emails and just writing. Basically, you're not going to have to talk all the time except it's a scheduled call. Alright, so now there are 7 C's of communication that can help you in your VA career. Alright, first one being clear. Clear basically means that you should, your message should be easily understandable. It should be easy to understand. When you say things, you should not be able to leave room for misinterpretation. You shouldn't leave room for your clients to, don't just say, oh, he'll figure it out. That it doesn't work in this kind of business. It doesn't work like that. Alright, so you have to be clear. You have to be very, very direct. You don't cut through the corners at all. You have to give it to them how it is. The second one being concise. Concise basically means being short. Alright, like straight to the point. Don't beat around the bush. Just avoid using unnecessary words as much as possible. You need to go straight to the point, because I'm going to remind you, the main reason why anybody would hire a virtual assistant is to reduce the workload on them, and to reduce stress, and also to give them enough time to do other things. So if you are going to be wasting time on unnecessary things, I don't think you've achieved the purpose of being a virtual assistant. Alright, now the third one is being concrete. Being concrete basically entails being, correct and honest. Alright, this one basically means when you are saying something, it has to come correct. It has to come with details. It needs to come with facts. You don't just say maybe. Nah, that's going to ruin your reputation as a virtual assistant. Alright, you need to come correct and you need to come honest. Okay, now the fourth one being correct. Correct basically said there shouldn't be errors in anything you do. I know we are all humans. There's no way you would ever do things in this life that would not have mistakes. But as virtual assistants, we need to do things in a way that our errors are 0.01%. Okay, even when it comes to your grammar, your spelling, your accuracy in finding information, anything you're doing, it needs the most minimal error ever. Okay, now the fifth one is coherence. Coherence basically means organizing your thoughts logically. It needs to be sequential, it needs to flow easily. Okay, they need to be able to understand it, not that you would arrange it A Z E. It needs to be A B C all the way down to Z. Okay, all right. It needs to be neat, it needs to make sense. You just don't scatter your ideas anyhow. It needs to be logical. All right, now the next one is complete. Complete basically means whatever you're trying to communicate, whatever information you're trying to put out there, whatever you're trying to give out to your clients or anybody you're communicating with, it needs to send out a full picture. All right, it needs to be complete. Anything you're saying, all the information needs to be in that sentence. It needs to be in that, conversation. Everything just needs to be in there. Not that you send one, come back the next 30 minutes, send another one. Everything needs to be in that conversation. And the last one, which is the seventh one, means cautious. Cautious basically means being kind, being polite, and being respectful when you're talking. Trust me, especially when you're just starting out, your clients would try to test you. Trust me, they will try to push your buttons. But when you maintain politeness, when you maintain the same level of respect, trust me, they will definitely put your respect back. Okay, they are not going to disregard it. They will give you the same level of respect that you give them. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, the next soft skill, which is listening. Basically, listening is not just hearing words. Listening means trying to understand what someone is saying. Okay, what someone wants, because everyone communicates with a reason. Okay, so I have here saying exceptional virtual assistants. We don't just listen, we hear words. All right, we don't just passively hear words. We actively listen to understand the nuance, unspoken needs, and underlying intentions of our clients. So there are going to be situations where, let me say, for example, you are trying to onboard your client and you are trying to find out their needs. Let me use a niche, for example. As a social media manager, and you're trying to onboard your clients, trying to know what exactly they need for their page, what exactly they want you to do for them, whether it's engagement or visibility or awareness or any of those things. But your client isn't being clear enough. But they just keep saying, "Oh, you see the way this person's own is. I would like that. I would like that. I would like that." As a good virtual assistant, it should click immediately that, this is what my clients want, this is what they need, this is what I can give them. And you should be able to instantly provide a solution. You should be able to instantly provide a solution. Alright? So, in quotes here, good virtual assistants, we don't just hear, okay? We try our best to understand what our clients want. I hope you get that. Alright? So let's move on to the next thing. So how do you cultivate the art of active listening? The first thing you need to do is pay attention. Alright? The first thing you need to do is pay attention. When you pay attention, you basically get rid of any form of distraction. If it's your bottle that's disturbing you, get rid of it. If it's something in the background that's disturbing you, get rid of it. Okay, focus entirely on the conversation you're having with your client. Focus entirely on what the other party is trying to say. Okay, now the next thing you need to do is avoid assumption. If something isn't clear to you, you need to ask questions. All right, you need to ask questions. You just don't jump to conclusions. Jumping into conclusions will put you in a lot of trouble. Trust me. If you don't want those troubles, you need to take a break. Listen again. If you don't get it, ask questions. And the best thing that would save anybody is the third part, which is taking detailed notes. When having a conversation with your client, it is best you take notes. Personally, for me, what I do is I record. Alright, I always ask them for their permission to record before I record, obviously, but I always record because it's easier to go back to listen to that recording. I don't know about you, but personally for me, I don't write that fast. Alright, but the recording will save me, and it would at least make it look like, oh, I'm paying attention to what they're saying. But at the same time, my phone is recording everything the conversation we're having, so I can easily go back and listen to it in case I forget something. Alright, now the fourth one is asking clarifying questions. So this part now just basically means you should ask questions on things that you're not certain about. Alright, instead of jumping into conclusion, I've told you before, ask questions in order to deepen the conversation. Okay, now the next thing is confirm understanding. So in this stage, the best way you can do it is just paraphrase, okay, or just summarize what the man has said. Let's say, for example, let me still use the social media part. My client wants engagements, but he doesn't know how to go about it, but he knows he wants to do trendy topics while still focusing on the normal day-to-day, activities of the let's use a restaurant, of the restaurant. So this part, just to confirm that I understand what my client is saying, I would basically summarize and paraphrase what he just told me. I would be like, oh, okay, so just to verify, or just to make sure I'm clear on what you want a social media manager that could help you in attaining awareness while still maintaining your day-to-day activities of the restaurant, but also pushing out trendy topics on your social media pages. You see the way I've summarized it now, like into 4 lines. That is it. Just summarize and paraphrase it and make it sound good in order to show that, oh, you know what you're doing. Alright, so let's move on to the next thing. Now the next thing now is how to make meaningful contribution. So the first thing you need to know is to speak when value is added. Alright, you need to offer input whenever necessary. If you see that this thing isn't going well, offer input. That is why that is why you are an assistant. You're not just there to shake your head or nod your head or say yes sir, yes ma'am. You need to offer input. You need to tell them, oh, you think this one would work better, you think this would work best. Or this is the thing, when offering input, you don't just put it out there. You need to do it respectfully, okay? You need to do it respectfully, not just blatantly shout, oh, but sir, I think this one is better. You could raise up your hand. Thank God, virtually now there's a way you could even raise up your hand during meeting. Just raise up your hand and say, oh, I noticed the conversation was leaning towards this direction, and I think I could offer a solution to it. You see, sounds better, doesn't it? So now that leads us to the next part, which is offer solution, not complaints. So let me pose a scenario to you now. If you are being hired, I know most of you here might be a first-time virtual assistant. If you're being hired, one of the most important questions they will ask you is, do you know how to use this tool? Do you know how to use this tool? Do you know how to use this thing? If you don't know how to use it, that's definitely a setback. Alright, it's a challenge. But if there's a way you can frame that challenge as, as something you're working on, then you have a proactive mind. Let's say, for example, your client is looking for someone that can do calendar management, but you've never worked with calendar management before. So what do you say then? You can offer solutions such as, oh, I understand it's something you want, like, how will I put it? I understand it's a requirement for this position, but I can guarantee you that I'm currently taking courses that can further better my understanding of calendar management so that I could effectively do the role well. Saying things like that is going to immediately convince them that, oh, okay, this person has a proactive mindset. They are easily going to look for solutions instead of, drag me or just make me feel like I'm wasting my time and money. Alright, so let's move on to the next thing, which is respect clients' boundaries. This part basically just means you should be respectful, understand your position. Then you need to know where to shut up, you need to know where to be appropriate, you need to know when to speak. Alright, you don't do anything out of your pay grade, basically. Alright, so the last thing, always align with your client's goal. Always make sure you know what they want so that you are not stepping out of boundaries. Alright, so let's move on to the next thing. Now the next thing is confidentiality and discretion. Confidentiality and discretion are basically two things that go hand in hand in the virtual assistance industry. Alright. I have something here that says trust is currency, and that is serious. Trust in the virtual assistance industry is money, because they can't see you, they can't hold you, they don't even know where you stay. Sometimes they don't know where you stay. Sometimes you'd have to provide those details. So how exactly do you convince them that they can trust you? Okay, you can't negotiate on things like that. You have to be able to convince them that you can trust me. I'm not going to, just put your information out there. Everything you give to me is secured. Just convince them. Alright. So confidentiality basically means protecting your client's information. Alright. Such as their passwords, their projects, their personal information, their card details, their ATM card details, their accommodation details, family details, those type of things. If a client asks you how you maintain confidentiality, the best way to say it is like you treat your client's information the same way you treat your family information. Okay, so give them the impression that the same respect you give to your family is the same respect you give to them. Let them know in advance. Alright, so now when it comes to discretion is the art of knowing what not to say or share, even when it is not explicitly stated. For example, the password. They've given you the password. For example, as a social media manager, if they give you the password to their Instagram, let's say someone with 100 million followers, you are not meant to share that with anybody. You can't just do that. Okay, it's not going to work out. You should not do that, even though they don't tell you, or it's not even stated in your contract. For a fact that you are not meant to share that. Alright, so now what would you do if they ask you about that? Just tell them you have different tools that would help in discretion and confidentiality. When it comes to preserving your client's information, there are different things you could use. Just research. Always do your research. There are tools that can help you save passwords effectively. Dropbox is one way of sharing files or folders between your clients and yourself securely. Even Google Drive too, I think you can do that securely. Okay, so you need to be able to convince them that you know what you are doing, and not only do you know what you are doing, but you could do it in the best way that nobody would find out. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. Now the next thing now is how to practice data security and professional prudence. So how do you maintain confidentiality? First point there is always use strong and unique password for all client related accounts. I would give you the best advice I can. Don't be the one to pick out the password. Alright, let them pick out the password. So when they pick out the password, it's easier for them to remember, one, and it also gives them that trust that, he wants me to be involved, or my virtual assistant wants me to be involved. Okay, now the next thing is you should never use a third party, never use third parties type of application in order to share things. Okay, even if it's just a person that you're referring to as third party, or it's an application or software, anything that is outside you and your client, you should never do that. Alright, so third thing is to work exclusively on trusted and secure devices and network. So most times clients would ask you questions, even during interview they would ask you questions like, how many devices do you have? I would advise you to be very truthful. Tell them if you have 3 devices, tell them you have 3. If you have 4, tell them you have 4. So most times, I'm going to give you a very honest scenario. It has happened to me before. I was managing someone's social media account, and my phone was dead. So I had to log into my laptop in order to do what I needed to do, which was respond to a query from a client. And instantly my client got a notification that someone just logged in, and then they reached out to me. Do I know this device? Do I know who's in charge of it? They were just asking the necessary question. I'm not saying they were wrong for asking those questions, but they had to ask. They were very, very necessary questions. And I had to give them honest, feedback that, oh, sorry, my phone died. I had to use my system in order to respond to someone that sent a message earlier today. All of those things are what you need to tell them in advance. Okay? So the last thing in maintaining confidentiality is signing an NDA. If you don't know what an NDA is, I think you need to go and research that. An NDA is basically an agreement. It's like a legally binding agreement that you sign, and when one party defaults, they can easily take you to court. And then practicing discretion as a virtual assistant, refrain from discussing clients' work or details publicly. That one is implied. You cannot go around even if you are working for the President of the United States of America, you need to zip it. Alright? Don't just go around blabbing and telling everybody, I work for this, I work for that. This is what is happening in my client's life. This is what is not happening in my client's life. You need to know what not to discuss. Alright? Second one, avoid oversharing personal and professional information on social media. Like I said, do not share your client's information everywhere. Keep all internal client matters strictly private. If your client tells you something personal, or even if it is not personal, even if it's public information, keep it to yourself. Alright? Exercise good judgment in all communication, both internal and external. So when it comes to communication, I've given you the 7 R's. If you imply it, or rather if you use it effectively and it still doesn't work, just make sure you have good judgment. Okay? When it comes to your client and when it comes to your external affairs. Okay? So now let's go over to the last slide. So now my final thoughts. Basically, being a virtual assistant here, it definitely involves skills, but it's more of a mindset. Okay? You need to have a proactive attitude, and a proactive attitude mixed with soft skills is going to set you apart from anybody. It is going to improve your professionalism in a way that it would speak dedication, it would speak good quality, it would speak integrity, and it will make you stand out from anybody. And the last thing I need you to know is that you can never finish learning. Alright? You would always learn new things. So learning is something that is continuous. It is going to happen even when you get hired. You would still learn new things. You would keep learning, even if it's just the person's name. You would keep learning. Alright? So don't close yourself in. Don't lock yourself in. Just be prepared to learn. Alright? And always expand your expertise. So with that, we've come to the very end of this video, and if you've liked it so far, please ensure to like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much. Bye.